Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nerdy Tarot. Today I've got the Knight of Wands as the obstacle and the Hanged Man as the opportunity. This guy also used to be called the Traitor because that's how they used to. That's how they would hang traitors by the foot. Pretty brutal. Anyway, let's get started. Knight of Wands. Here's some of his little neighbor buddies. Here's how he's depicted in the Marseille, which is kind of my go-to. Interesting how they're facing in opposite directions. I think this posture is a little bit more accurate of describing this archetype. While there is certainly an element of this kind of charging ahead, just going full speed, pursuing those creative ideas, pursuing those passions. I think this archetype is going to be making a lot of violent 180-degree turns. Changing direction. Yeah, I think this card symbolizes a person fitting into the archetype of a creative, energetic, constantly moving, super sexy, super seductive individual. The kind of really active seduction. It's overwhelming in nature. I'm not talking about the kind of person who is irresistibly attractive because of their qualities, but they can nonetheless be passive. Like a Knight of Cups could be someone that you identify as a man or woman that is just the container of some of the most beautiful virtues, but they're just doing their own thing. It's it's the kind of attraction where you might end up pursuing them. With this is someone. What was the character's name? If you've ever watched Black Adder, there's a hilarious recurring kind of archetype of this. It's always this old friend of Black Adder's who always just appears in an explosion, and he's just the modern internet archetype is the Chad, just masculine. And I don't think it necessarily has to be a guy, but just someone with that overwhelming extroverted assertiveness. Yeah, there's this one scene in I think the third season of Blackadder where he shows up and just laughs, but in this way where he almost kind of gestures to everyone in this room in this motion of the laughter, and it's like he laughs and then everyone else laughs. Like his laughter is this demand for joining this extravagant exuberance energy or whatever. Anyway, so I think this is that kind of character, and yeah, they could be super seductive, both in a sexual way, but also this could represent a really confident, fast talking salesman, business guy. He's like, yeah. Like, we're selling these, stocks. What are you? Don't you know anything about this? It's just endless energy. We're all getting filthy fucking rich. Like, you coming or not? Like, and then you're like, whoa. Okay, I'm coming. Like, it could be an overpowering character, and it could certainly take you for the proverbial ride. The warning here, the obstacle here, is that these individuals change direction a lot, and their interests often shift a lot. Now, the knight, the difference between the knight and the king, let's say, is that a king would be a little bit more stationary, but also less impressive in their volatility. This guy is really going out there. He's really adventurous. So getting involved with this type of archetype for that brief little while that you're, engulfed in that whirlwind. You're probably gonna see a lot of crazy shit if it is someone working in the creative, financial kind of sector. If it's someone who's creating new things of value. It could be like maybe um, less so an investor now that I think about it, more like the hot new artist, you know, the hot new crazy outsider artist that if you're into buying art, all the art dealers are crazy. This guy just appeared on the scene out of nowhere, or it's like a musician or something along those lines. Um, Backing this individual, investing in their stuff. It's like this is. I feel like this is the kind of artist, let's say, that stirs up you know, the buying of the art. The prices skyrocket for a brief amount of time, and then everyone forgets about them. Like a year later. A year later, they're not even a painter anymore. Now they're a mountain climber or some shit. They're just, And these individuals, one of the things that could be really annoying about them is that they they generally they don't stop being this, extroverted and assertive, and it's it, it almost appears like they never fail, right? So it could be pretty easy to mistake that for something that you want to sort of hitch your wagon to. But but yeah, as they change direction and move around, they generally shake loose anyone that might be attached to them. Also, in a relationship, I mean, like let's say in a sexual relationship, this is someone that like you're gonna have some intense passionate relationship with for like 4 days, and you're gonna be like, oh my god, I'm gonna marry this. But where do they go? They're gone, and they're gone. So yeah, so I think I would say stay away from this individual. Just kind of like have don't get the wrong idea. If you could get in and out, no pun intended, maybe pun intended. If you could get in and out and have some fun, take advantage of a really short-term opportunity, great. But yeah, don't expect things to stay the same for very long, or for this individual to stick around. For the opportunity, we got the Hangman, Le Pendu. I think that just means the hanged. I don't know if it's the Hangman. I'm not sure. If anyone speaks French, let me know. A lot of the names are tricky. I think in the Marseille, there's interesting wordplay that I'm trying to brush up on my French to be able to better understand. But yeah, not so much at this point. Anyway, Hangman, the two. It's number 12 card. I consider the decimal series to just sort of recycle, so that the two is like the 10. And yeah, I was kind of thinking this is like the this is the Zen Master of the deck, and I like thinking of this card as the dude from the Big Lebowski. Um, just just existing, and maybe at this point in time existing in a situation that's not really favorable. Like this character looks quite relaxed for someone who's suspended by the foot, and it kind of looks like, or I don't know. This is a really interesting card because there's a lot of conversations about did this guy hang himself? Has he been hung like the traitor that I mentioned, but he's just having a good time? Um, I kind of like to think of it. I kind of like to think of it as a little bit of both. Like someone who got in trouble and that was outside of their control. Shit happens, but they chose the punishment, and they chose the punishment in a way where they're like they're like, I'll be able to get something out of this. Like this way, um, I'll be able to just spend some time relaxing upside down, possibly in pain, but also I'll have this unique perspective on life for, that period of time. I think this card kind of symbolizes that Zen-like acceptance of events as they unfold, and having this higher perspective on things, where it's like, I would say this is also one of like the least neurotic cards. It's like, you know, uh, being in a neurotic state, kind of on a neurobiological level, means that you've got any sort of emotional state in your amygdala. It just immediately floods into your prefrontal cortex and starts influencing your conscious thought. It's like your subconscious emotions just immediately start to set the pace for what you're thinking. And I think this card is it's kind of the opposite. It's like you could you could have awareness of the fact that, like, it's like, wow, I'm really sad right now, or like I'm really angry, or I'm really happy, or I'm whatever, but there's a distance between your conscious awareness of, things, the world, but also yourself and your emotional experience. Um, yeah, I think there was a story with a Buddhist monk where um, some Buddhist monk was being tortured in some device where, you know his arm was going to be essentially broken for torture, and yeah, this monk is just sitting there, and he goes, "Hey, if you keep doing that, my arm's going to break." And then he keeps getting tortured, and his arm breaks, and then he's like, "Told you it was going to break." Just the the ability to the ability to sort of consciously operate that far above all of those things. And I mean, I'm not expecting this opportunity to be interpreted as being able to have that degree of, you know, calm, zen-like detachment from things, because that's just crazy, right? Um, but some of it nonetheless. And I think what makes it easier, um, I think what makes the detachment easier, especially in the face of emotions that could be overwhelming, and like physical pain is a pretty big one. Um, yeah, I think one of the secrets there lies in this interesting phenomena that I read about, where journalists, but specifically photo and video journalists, have this thing that they've been reporting on for decades, as long as this phenomenon has been studied, where they're like, when journalists find themselves in war-torn regions or places where disasters have taken place, and there is just horrendous, there's just casualties everywhere, just bodies, right? Really disturbing stuff. They report that as long as they stick the camera in between themselves and the world, um, it's like none of that has an impact on them. Like, it doesn't emotionally overpower them. They're able to sort of see things kind of, more objectively, I guess, without having the strong empathic reaction to it. And even journalists that just write experience this to a degree when if as they're looking at, horrible things, if they're thinking narratively in terms of like, how am I going to write about this, if they're kind of taking notes mentally, so they have some reduction of that trauma. And then photographers more so, and then videographers even more so. Often also, like, videographers in war zones end up like, they're they're braver than the soldiers. It's, the soldiers are like reluctant to rush out, into the breach or something, and the videographers there ready to film the thing. It's like, yeah, it's a really. There's also a video I saw a little while ago where there's like some race, it's like a 100-meter dash or something, and the runners are racing, and the the sort of the wide angle camera is zoomed out far enough that you could see a cameraman on the ground running next to all the racers on the track to film them from the side from a close up, and somehow he's running just as fast as these racers, and like he's just the camera guy. They're the professional. This is like, I think it's like Olympics or something. Obviously, it makes sense that you would want to hire the cameramen that are able to run as fast as possible. But this guy's like, he could be competing. He's keeping up with the guy that's in the lead. But yeah, so I think that's kind of, I think that hints at a little secret there, like the idea that as long as you're mindful of the fact that you're observing things, even if it's just observing your own emotional state, all of a sudden there's something about that act of being aware that you're observing a phenomenon that separates you from it. That doesn't just let you get totally intertwined where trauma, so much trauma just, it turns you into an extension of the trauma. Like you're not an individual anymore. You're just this thing that is an expression of trauma. Or like with anything like excitement, happiness, arousal, whatever. It it's pretty common for those emotions to kind of just take over and animate people. Um, but yeah, I think the opportunity of the Hangman is to sort of focus on how you're perceiving things, how your point of view is being altered by that specific state that you're in, and this will both allow you a more objective experience of that state itself, which is informative and interesting. And then also it'll give you a higher degree of autonomy, so that you're not consumed by those emotions. Yeah, so that's it for today. Watch out for Red Lamborghini Man in a Hawaiian t-shirt, especially if he's got red hair. And yeah, take a sort of outside objective look at your state. Thanks for watching. Drop me a like if you enjoyed the video. Feel free to comment any questions, or hashtag free reading to be entered into the weekly draw for a free one-on-one reading. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.